Good morning. This is Father Stephen Kelly from St. John's Church in Detroit. We're continuing our series of daily morning meditations where we generally look at one or another of the lessons that are assigned for morning or evening prayer, what is known as the daily office lectionary. And I thought today we would go ahead and take a look at the gospel lesson that's assigned from St. John's Gospel, the 12th chapter, beginning at the 20th verse. Now that we are in Passiontide, right, it is now Wednesday after Passion Sunday, these last 2 weeks of Lent, we are heading headlong into Jesus' passion, and ultimately we are heading towards the cross and the grave for Jesus Christ, and of course for Easter, it's the empty grave. But you can read ahead in the story if you want to. But all the lessons for the gospel are heading in that direction this far into John's gospel in particular. And so it is, we have this interesting interaction that's happening between Jesus and some of his disciples. Here it is. And there were certain Greeks among them that came up to worship at the feast. The same came therefore to Philip, which was of Bethsaida of Galilee, and desired him, saying, Sir, we would see Jesus. Philip cometh and telleth Andrew, and again Andrew and Philip tell Jesus. Jesus answered them, saying, The hour is come, that the Son of Man should be glorified. Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. He that loveth his life shall lose it, and he that hateth his life in this world shall keep it unto life eternal. If any man serve me, let him follow me. And where I am, there shall also my servant be. If any man serve me, him will my Father honor. Now is my soul troubled. And what shall I say, Father? Save me from this hour? But for this cause came I unto this hour. Father, glorify thy name. Then came there a voice from heaven, saying, I have both glorified it and will glorify it again. The people therefore that stood by and heard it said that it thundered. Others said, An angel spake to him. Jesus answered and said, This voice came not because of me, but for your sakes. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out. And I, if I be lifted up from the earth, will draw all men unto me. This he said, signifying what death he should die. Now, a couple of things I just want to point out. And again, I hope that you are reading these lessons during the week and meditating on them on your own. But a couple of things jump out at me about this lesson. First of all, at the very beginning, the idea that these Greeks are coming and they say to Philip and to Andrew, Sir, we would see Jesus. And I know that the wonderful Anglo-Catholic Episcopal Church in Ashmont, near the Boston area, I think it is a part of Boston, has a wonderful plaque in the pulpit that only the preacher sees, and it says, Sir, we would see Jesus. It's a nice reminder for the pulpit, for the preacher to remember that that's why people are there, to see Jesus, not to see the preacher. But also, we get to this where we hear the voice, and God once again speaks. There's an audible voice of God the Father that speaks and talks about the glorifying. But the reality is Jesus says the time is coming. We are very close to what God has willed, and that ultimately is for him to go to the cross to die for our sins. And so Jesus is now, once again, he's letting his disciples know that this is coming. But it always strikes me when you hear this, when he says, now is the judgment of this world. Remember that the devil has dominion over the earth, right? He was cast out of heaven, we heard in the book of Revelation, and he and the fallen angels are run amok down here. And we talked about those temptations of the world, the flesh, and of course, the devil. And so the prince of this world would be Satan. And so Jesus says, now is the judgment of the world. Now the prince of this world shall be cast out. And how's it going to happen? Well, we know, right? And if I be lifted up, will draw all men unto me. Which, of course, what he said, signifying how he would die. Now, we remember those who would hear this, who are of the original covenant, would think about how God's healing was brought to the people of Israel when they were out in the desert wandering around for 40 years. At one point, there's a story of them being bit by snakes. And so the healing that was given to them was that Moses was to put a snake on a stick, and if he lifted it up to the people, they would receive healing. Which, by the way, if you've ever seen an emblem for a doctor's office, right? It is that snake coiled on a stick, right? And that means that's a sign of healing. So Jesus uses this kind of corporate memory and image for the people of the original covenant, and John records it for us, that, we have held up a snake in the wilderness, but Jesus says, if I be lifted up, I will bring all men unto me. In other words, the healing that comes to the world will come through Jesus being lifted up, and he will be lifted up on the cross. So I hope that you are praying and thinking about all the good grace that God is doing in your life as you prepare at the end of this Lenten season for a wonderful celebration of those holy days in Holy Week, and ultimately the Feast of the Resurrection. But I hope especially that you're having a blessed Wednesday. May God bless you.